We're out here at the 96th Annual California Farm Bureau meeting, and I am talking with Paul. You were speaking on some pretty controversial topics today, talking about labor. Can you give us an overview of what you were talking about, please?
Today's discussion was an opportunity to share a historic movement that's occurring in Fresno right now. It's a true civil rights movement with the farm workers who are fighting for their right to have their voices heard and to decertify a union that is representing them.
Why have the farm workers gathered to do this?
The farm workers are deciding that they no longer need to have union representation. They no longer need to pay 3% of their wages for benefits and terms and conditions of employment that they're currently receiving from the employer that they're working for.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what the benefit is for them and go into a little bit more about what this really means for the workers?
In this instance, we're talking about a union that disappeared for 20 years from representing these workers. These workers enjoyed the benefits of their current employer and no longer need to have 3% of their wages taken to pay for these same benefits. They have good wages in the industry. They have open lines of communication with their employer, and the tide has turned. We no longer see the need for the union representation of these workers that have the protections of the state legislature, of the regulations that are out there protecting them.
What about from an employer standpoint? What does this mean for the employers?
Employers need to be cautious of what is occurring right now in the heart of the valley with this historic movement occurring. And if the UFW is successful, we see a potential resurgence for the ag community in this state. And if they're unsuccessful, we see perhaps a continuing movement where the UFW continues to fade away.
Now, as this continues to play out, and we know that there's been a lot going on with this issue, is there anything that can be done, let's say first from farm worker position and then from an employer position? What can they do?
Well, right now we have this movement by the workers who are standing up for their rights, and they're utilizing a process in the Agricultural Labor Relations Act to decertify, to get rid of the union. And that is a procedure that's in place. Our governor put that in place nearly 30 years ago when he created and implemented the Agricultural Labor Relations Act. So the ag workers right now are using the tools that the governor gave them to use to exercise their rights. The rights to be represented, also the rights to not be represented. Employers, likewise, have this opportunity to see really what is going on in this movement and this resurgence of unionization, and to decide, do they want to, if they want unions to come in there, and if they don't, how they need to go about conducting themselves to remain union free.
You know, you brought up a good point, and I want to ask you about this again. You said the right to not be represented. Tell us more about that. It's okay to say, no, we don't want to be in this union.
We have a First Amendment right of association. That is the right to associate with unions if we choose to. We also have a right that is as equally recognized, which is to not be represented by a union, to have the freedom to choose for ourselves whether that is the case. And here in this historic fight that's going on in the Central Valley of California is the right for these workers to decide for themselves, a right that they were not allowed to exercise that right 20 years ago because most of them were not working there at the time.
Right, all right. And do you have anything else that we should bring out in this issue?
I think that we need to keep in mind and be mindful of this. It's not the end of it, and to really be mindful that this movement will continue through California.
All right, thank you, Paul.